Towards the end of 1965, Indonesia erupted in a bloodbath. Neighbor turned against neighbor in mass killings which left 500,000 people dead. The trauma of these events has left a lasting scar on the soul of the country.
There are something we cannot forget in our life, and it is one of the things that I cannot forget in my life. But I believe it just happened like that. It is part of a history. We never expect to be like that before, but it is something that we have to do that thing. Because people cannot do anything what they like. Sometimes they have to do something what they're forced to do, like self-defense or something. We don't want to fight, we don't want to kill the other, but sometimes we have to defend ourselves. It is part of our life.
The army now rules Indonesia, the fourth largest nation in the world. Its military leaders have put economic development before all else. They have provided the political stability so attractive to foreign investment. Indonesia, with its fast-growing economy, is now the most powerful nation in the region. But with increasing prosperity, Indonesians are beginning to demand a say in the running of their country. The army, however, is reluctant to risk a return to the turbulence of the 1960s. Its leaders are not convinced that the time is right to relax restrictions that currently regulate everyday life. Under the new order government, no direct opposition is permitted. But some are prepared to challenge the government's vision and to call openly for more democracy.
The new order started with a new program. Investment was needed. The climate for investment had to be made favorable. In the first place, stabilization. No angry labor unions, low wages, and of course, not too much talk about human rights. So, for the development that we got in exchange, there is, of course, the question, can you exchange your human rights for doing away with poverty? And I think that is, of course, a very academic question. I think that there will be no development without democracy, and that there is no democracy without the right to organize and to associate and freedom of expression. You must not forget that at the end of the old order, Sukarno really had made a mess out of the economical situation in Indonesia.
In 1945, Indonesia declared its independence from colonial rule. For the first time, this archipelago of over 13,000 islands and hundreds of ethnic groups saw itself as a nation, the Republic of Indonesia. For 4 years, they were to fight against the Dutch under the one banner, Merdeka, freedom. Now, independence had been won. In the new republic, a Western-style parliamentary democracy was established, with President Sukarno as head of state. But already, forces at work within the country, Muslim, army, and communist, had begun to threaten the unity of the new nation. President Sukarno's major achievement and his constant aim was to hold the country together.
I tolerate all ideologies. The nationalist ideology, the religious ideology, the communist ideology. So far, they are not making trouble or damage to the Indonesian state.
During the 1950s, army-led rebellions sprang up on the outer islands of Sumatra and Sulawesi. The rebels complained they were not receiving their rightful share of the huge income the central government collected from their oil and other resources. They resented, too, a growing alliance between President Sukarno and the Communist Party. Sukarno's government declared a state of war and dispatched Army Chief of Staff General Nasution to put down the uprisings.
When Sumatra mostly was in rebellion, I was Chief of Staff. I put a flying boat, a PBY, above to observe the situation. He reported at 2 o'clock in the night that a big 4-engine plane was above him. And he saw fires like scouts, and that, fires on the ground. When I came back at the airport to get my plane to go back to my headquarters, one captain came out from under the bridge, a rebellion captain. Yeah? And he said he has been there, he was in charge to receive all the dropped anti-aircraft guns and ammunition by American planes. Yeah, immediately, I got myself the report from the captain of the PRI. And he has to help us to get all these things. CIA was involved, giving not only political backing, but also planes and also guns and so on.
So why did the Americans want to join with the rebels?
No, you can read now in the Senate committee when they interrogated the situation that it was the Dallas period of CIA to topple Sukarno. They thought that Sukarno is going closer to the communist side.
Within months, the rebellions had been crushed. The army found its power and prestige greatly enhanced. Its claim to a say in running the country had been dramatically reinforced. Today, the army effectively runs the country. To improve its standing in the villages, it gets involved in community projects.
Bapak-Ibu sekalian, terus kiwa tekan iki mang gawe sing alus banget. Aja nganti papan masjid iki mbok sembayang kok kalah karo omahe dhewe. Iya. Kendoko. Kendoko itu nanti usahakan. Masa enggak bisa kritis buat rumah, cuma buat itu enggak bisa. Ganti yang baik. Nah, jenengan pakai karo kanca-kancane karo warga umat, di impun supaya dalam pelaksanaan ini bisa kita itu selalu meningkat, terutama yang berkaitan dengan kita hidup. Kita hidup itu sebenarnya arep ninggalke jeneng apik. Sesuai kalau programming pemerintah. program yang pemerintah ki arep nganake pembangunan rohani lan jasmani.
Indonesia is the largest Muslim country in the world. Over 90% of its people are believers. Many Muslims distrust the growing Western influence in their country and want to maintain the national emphasis on family and community life.
Bisa kita lihat kekuatan gigi dari Kang Dalimo ini. Iya. Berjalan Kang Dalimo sanggup mengangkat sepeda ini dengan giginya.
Kalau kerjaan sebagai akrobat dengan menggali pasir, Pak Dalimo senang mana?
Ya, sama-sama ya senang. Kalau ada kerjaan, yang mana yang dikerjakan, saya kerjakan.
Tapi kalau harus milih?
Kalau milih ya nggak bisa itu. Karena belum tentu ada pesanan. Kalau akrobat, belum tentu kalau ada yang nanggap. Direct, saya dahulu kerja sebagai minta itu pembayaran slot pakai uang kantor. Kalau dulu namanya pakai uang kantor, kalau sekarang namanya korupsi. Soalnya tidak bisa mengembalikan pemakaian uang kantor lalu dikeluarkan tidak dengan hormat.
Uang dulu, uang kantor dipakai untuk kebutuhan apa, Pak Dalimo?
Waktu dulu saya belum punya istri, hanya untuk royal. Untuk anak muda itu memang gitu. Royal sama perempuan atau main judi. Setelah itu tahun 51, saya dimasukkan kerja oleh ayah saya di kantor CKC. Kalau sekarang namanya bukan CKC. Kantor Keuangan Negara. Saya di sana baru sekitar 4 bulan. Saya tidak senang, saya lalu keluar. Soalnya gajinya hanya Rp125 per bulan. Beras mendapat 10 kilo per bulan.
The struggle against the Dutch had destroyed the economy. Despite independence, most of the wealth had remained in Dutch hands. In 1957, President Sukarno nationalized the major industries. 2 years later, Sukarno, frustrated by the failure of parliamentary democracy to solve Indonesia's economic and political problems, devised a new system of government, guided democracy, by which he would now have real power. To balance the still growing influence of the army, he forged an alliance with the communists, the PKI, believing they would support his own radical agenda. Meanwhile, his own rule became increasingly autocratic. His system of guided democracy was to provide the basis for the government today.
I am just a father of the people. They have made me lifelong president. They have made me the leader of the revolution. Because, perhaps or maybe, I'm doing everything according to the wishes of the people.
Do you allow foreign opinion to come in here? Do you permit foreign newspapers and magazines to be circulated in your country?
Not if the foreign magazines of newspapers are making anti-Indonesia propaganda.
We think Pravda and Izvestia makes anti-American propaganda every day. Do you think we should keep it out?
I don't know. That is your business. That's your business.
I understand that there is a secret society of Indonesians who like to hear the Beatles, but they are not met with official
Yes,
proof.
I prohibit Beatles and Beatlism here. And I prohibit also twist here.
Do you consider beetleism a form of colonialism?
No, just a mental disease.
What are the penalties, Mr. President?
I have instructed the police just only to cut the hair.
Cut the hair.
Cut the hair. Oh, beetle boys.
I was a writer at the time. I was a literary writer. And then the communist cultural organizations made Sukarno banned the so-called liberal artists when we made that manifesto, which became popular with the name of Manikebu or Cultural Manifesto. And so I was, especially when I was involved in trying to oppose Sukarno because there was no democracy. And so I was involved during the student demonstration, or joined the student demonstration at that time, because my purpose is basically to establish a kind of democracy at that time.
As life became more and more difficult in the early 1960s, the Communist Party, the PKI, grew stronger. Their organization now reached into the factories and villages. The government legislated for land reform, but were unable to carry it out. In 1964, the PKI decided to take matters into their own hands. They organized the seizure of land by the peasants. This provocative action brought the PKI into direct conflict both with wealthy Muslim landowners and the army, who had taken over the running of the Dutch plantations.
Nggak bengi, nggak bioskop. Nang Tayuban. Hasilnya pari di didol. Nonton Nayub. Jadi tiap-tiap ada rapat mereka itu yang menentang kepada pemerintahan. Jadi seakan-akan tidak setuju dengan adanya pemerintahan. Jadi terus kalau rapat itu nggak cukup 1 hari, rapat itu sampai 2 hari, 3 hari baru selesai. Kadang-kadang sampai didatangi oleh Pak Bupati untuk memutuskan rapat itu.
Dulu orang yang menentang rapat-rapat itu orang dari golongan mana biasanya?
Dari golongan PKI, dari Partai Komunis.
Kenapa?
Mentang-mentang itu karena tidak setuju dengan adanya pemerintahan. Jadi pemerintah desa mau membuat begini, buat begitu, ditentang. Jadi mestinya itu harus menurut kehendak sendiri, kehendak mereka. Jadi tidak mau menurut kehendak daripada pemerintahan, peraturan pemerintahan. Wah, kalau dulu pada waktu sebelum 65, kalau ada masalah tanah, ya rame, ya dari pihak orang-orang yang ini, ya itu ada saja yang membela. Mestinya benar, dibela oleh ini, wakilnya rame, geger.
Sering?
Sering dulu, sebelum 65.
By 1965, relations between the communists and the army had reached flashpoint. The communists had built strong popular support that posed a real threat to the army's privileged position. The head of the Communist Party, Aidit, publicly accused military leaders of corruption and demanded that PKI members be included in the army at all levels. It was now only a matter of time before the uneasy balance between the army and the communists was to end in direct confrontation. In the early hours of October the 1st, 1965, 6 generals were kidnapped and killed by troops of Sukarno's Presidential Guard in an attempted army coup. General Nasution was the only one to escape.
Just a couple of minutes before they came, there was a mosquito in my bedroom. So my wife put the light on, I was with a big sapu, you know, sapu lidi behind this, and then noisy of many trucks there. So my wife opened the door of the bedroom and looked outside, and she saw the presidential guards, the first echelon coming inside, forcing through the front door, and so immediately locked the door. As a wife, they had better feeling than I am. He said, "Don't go outside, it is not good for you." I think so. But I said to my wife, "They are soldiers. I will talk to them." You know, press guard are also soldiers. My wife said no, but I opened the door, and the first soldier is about 1.5 meters from me, and immediately firing. You know, as a military man, you drop yourself immediately. That saved me. But immediately, my wife put me aside and locked the door, and there are about more than 11 bullet holes in my bedroom floor, and then the guns trying to get inside. But my wife, she said, "You have to flee from here. They will murder you." After I left the room, my sister, a student of the university, brought my crying little daughter of 5 years, and they went through the wrong door, but they're waiting for me. And so they got 5 bullets in her body. So I would like to jump back here to see my daughter, but my wife said, "No, they are here to kill you, not us. Away." Kita mendoa sebentar. Anak-anak ya. Al-Fatihah. A'udzu billahi minasyaitonir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I remember my wife brought my daughter in her hands to the grave, and I coming there from my car here, everybody was embracing me and so on. And after the funeral, started the CAPI, the high school students organization, with a demonstration and ransacked for the first time the headquarters of the Communist Party in Jakarta. It started at that time, that day, after the funeral.
After the failure of the attempted coup, President Sukarno was gradually stripped of all authority. The besieged president was forced by the army to appoint their choice as commander-in-chief.
I, President, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces of the Republic of Indonesia, appoint Major General Suharto, and I appoint him as Minister, Commander of the Army, and God willing, inshallah, I shall inaugurate him as such in, I think, in 1 or 2 days.
Step by step, General Suharto was to take over the running of the country. The army leadership accused the communists of masterminding the attempted coup. By blaming the communists, the army was able to unleash a full-scale onslaught on their long-term rival for power.
The military from Jakarta came to the area, and then the killing started, done by the civilian together with the military. So it seems that with the military coming there was an encouragement by the people to arrest the supposed to be the communist members, and they killed them.
I saw many people here, and most of them are from young people, anti-communist, and also some army, and they start making executions here in this bridge. I saw some of these communists being executions. And then my friend come back to me and said, do you remember our friends when we studied in Jogja? And he mentioned me one of my friend's name. And I said, yes, I remember him. Where is he now? Why don't we come and see? And then my friend took me across this river somewhere there. And then I went to make my step to the backside of a small house. There was 5 heads laying on the ground. And I found that one of the heads is my friend that I know when I was in Jogja. In that time, I feel something horrible coming up in my soul and in my heart. And I asked my friend who took me here, oh, is he a member of a communist? And my friend said, he's one of the leaders. This thing happens just in a short time, and I feel that I was empty. I say nothing. I just feel like to cry and to scream. And after that, I decide to go back to the city.
Jadi pembunuhan itu dilaksanakan dengan cara yang tidak modern gitu ya. Jadi kita kembali seakan-akan pada abad ke-16, 17 begitu pembunuhannya ya toh. Jadinya begini, jadi pembunuhan itu kalau di perkebunan atau di hutan-hutan itu membuat satu lubang atau lubang besar ya. Lalu lubang itu orang ditaruh di kepalanya, diarahkan ke lubang. Lalu dengan begitu kepala itu dipotong. Nah, menurut berita yang saya dapat dari teman-teman saya ya, itu malah ada yang melaksanakan, seorang wanita yang melaksanakan, bukan yang dipotong, yang melaksanakan. Di mana di daerah? Nah, itu di daerah Pasuruan, seorang wanita. Nah, itu yang melaksanakan. Nah, lalu terjadinya begitu. Ada lagi yang lain lagi pembunuhan itu dilaksanakan dengan orang itu dicincang, ya, dicincang, lalu dengan tali, yang satu tali dicincang di pohon, satu kali ditaruh di mobil, ditarik gitu. Jadi berarti ini kepala ini, tali ini putus karena kena tarik tali itu. Tarinya itu pakai tari ini baja itu, tampar baja. Nah itu ada tajian. Ini cerita banyak sekali di antara teman-teman. Ada juga yang ditaruh di mobil, truk ya, lalu truk, frahuto ya, lalu dituangkan dari atas gunung gitu, tapi bawah ini sungai Berantas.
Did you feel there was a kind of collaboration between the army and the Muslim people in the campaign against the communists?
For the all anti-communist people, we have the same campaigns in our own way. Of course, the army in their organization, we also do the same as a member of the people. We are at the same idea, and we have to do the same thing. So sometime in one and other place, we work together for this.
Which group was deciding who should be the targets of the killings?
Of the killing, the target of the killing.
Who was deciding?
Deciding. Everybody, every people know who is the communist active before, you know. For instance, in the village, people know persons among them as a communist. So when the time comes, the people point him, he was the one or something. So a group of young people and also some of army come to pick him. And then some of them execution here.
For several months, communists were hunted down and killed. An estimated 500,000 Indonesians lost their lives in one of the bloodiest massacres of modern times.
Setelah peristiwa itu terjadi, kami semua itu disuruh wajib lapor, ke umpamanya di Kodim, ya, di kantor polisi ada juga, atau di kantor sospol, begitu ya, itu macam-macam ya. Jadi saya sedang lapor, tapi ini mereka percaya dengan kami bahwa kami nggak akan lari, dia tahu. Jadi dia begini, Bapak setelah tanda tangan ini tinggal di sini saja, tidak usah pergi. Nah begitu. Lalu saya bilang, loh Pak, saya bawa sepeda. Loh bagaimana sepeda saya ini dulu dipakai oleh adik saya untuk sekolah. Ya sudah saya izini pulang sebentar ya. Nanti kembali loh ya. Saya juga kembali. Soalnya nggak ada perasaan salah, gitu. Nggak ada perasaan salah.
This man was to spend the next 14 years incarcerated in prisons and concentration camps. He, like hundreds of thousands of others, was jailed because of his membership of a legal left-wing organization. While most prisoners have now been released, there are still a small number of communists and leftists in jail, some 25 years later. President Sukarno was detained by the new government and died in 1970 while under house arrest.
In 1965, 66, 67, in a very quick way, then the military controlled also the political situations because the only rival for the military was Sukarno and the Communist Party, and they were put aside from the scene, from the political arena of Indonesia. Then that means, I would say after 68, 69, the military controlled the political life of Indonesia as well as the economic life because they control the state enterprises. So that's how they became very strong. and also they get involved more and more into business in the new order.
Since 1966, the new order government, dominated by the army, has remained in power. General Suharto is now President Suharto. Since taking power, his government has maintained stability, concentrating with considerable success on economic development.
Thus, how do you think the new order differs from guided democracy under Sukarno? Is it just a continuation?
From reality, it's a continuation of central power. It is still the same. All the time, the emergency powers were still there. He still has emergency powers now. And if you have emergency powers, you can partly or completely postpone the civil rights. Yeah, that's the whole problem. If you would like, according to Constitution, freedom of speech, expression, freedom of writing, and to have associations and so, it's still not yet there. Yeah?
Like all new nation states, Indonesia has a parliament, but it is a parliament without opposition. There are elections, but the results are always known in advance. Golkar, the government's own party, always receives around 2/3 of the vote. The government believes that Western-style political practices are divisive. The new order has built a political system aimed at cohesion and harmony, which has the important function of ensuring that the government remains in power. Indonesia's economic prosperity has meant that most communities are now better off. The huge influx of money from the oil boom of the 70s and 80s has enabled the government to build new roads, hospitals, schools, and houses.
Sekitar 2.500 sampai 3.000 yang sehari. Lumayan gitu ya. Sebagai tambahan untuk sehari-hari cukup berarti. Alhamdulillah Pak. Cukup ya. Buat ngasuh rumah juga cukup Pak. Jangan sampai Pak bapaknya nelayan, anaknya nelayan lagi. Jadi kalau bisa bapaknya lebih.
Tapi saya, bapak saya petani, tapi anaknya menjadi presiden. Saya butuh aja. Oh itu. Anaknya berapa ini? Satu berapa? Bang. Apa namanya? Bang. Sekolah tidak? Loh, kenapa di sekolah? Sekolah di SD tidak perlu pakai duit, sama bapak tidak boleh barangkali ya. Tidak boleh sekolah sama bapak. Umurnya berapa? Umurnya berapa? Mau tahu enggak umurnya? 8 tahun. Ya sekolah sudah sekolah. Bilang sama Bapak Ibu ya, saya disuruh sama Pak Harto suruh sekolah. Belum 8 sih ya, ya 8 suruh sekolah. Di sekolah SD tidak bayar.
While the old order government wanted to break the power of foreign capital, the new order government has attracted massive amounts of foreign investment, which has helped Indonesia to become one of the fastest growing economies in Southeast Asia. Springing up outside the major cities are huge industrial enterprises, most often owned by foreign investors, working in partnership with local Chinese Indonesians. Millions of young people have moved out of their villages to work in factories, living far from their families. The hours are long, often 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. But because there are far more people than jobs, young women like Oti consider themselves lucky to have permanent work. Oti sings in a band, which practices in the lunch break. Despite her meager wage, she still manages to scrape together enough to send money back to her family.
Jadi ibu kerja, bapak kerja, saya kerjakan. Sekarang yang paling kecil sekolah terakhir dia ya. Jadi kita bisa, karena kita namanya orang nggak mampu, bisa bantu sedikit-sedikit. Dari kita mau minta dari siapa kan nggak ada yang bisa dimintain selain dari kita. Iya, ya orang di kampung kan nggak tahu, dikiranya kita di sini senang aja ya banyak duit ya. Kalau pulang suka minta duit, dikiranya kita habis kerja. Kalau pulang pada minta duit, tahunya kita juga di sini seret. Susah duitnya. Ya pas-pasan lah, cukup nggak namanya pabrik.
Sini tidur berapa satu kamar?
Saya di sini berlima.
Berlima dalam satu kamar?
Iya. Kadang-kala di dalam 3 atau di sini 2.
Terus kalau pulang harus nunggu air sampai berapa jam di dalam untuk mandi?
Enggak, 10 menit. Kan 5:30 kan istirahat ya. Suka penuh kan, mereka memang lembur semua jam 9. Ya kita ngantri, ya kira-kira 10 menit atau seperempat lah. Nunggu, ngantri. Kan penuh juga.
WC antri juga?
Iya, semua di sini kok serba ngantri.
Kalau nonton TV di sebelah melihat film Amerika dengan rumah-rumah gedongan besar-besar, mewah-mewah, bagaimana perasaannya?
Oh, kagum.
Pengen juga.
Pengen juga, kadang-kala kapan kita
Kapan
jadi
kita
orang
bisa
gitu
punya
ya?
gitu, tapi
Wah,
nggak
di
mungkin.
negara orang hebat ya. Bangga gitu. Tapi kita suka pengen lagi, belum tentu itu juga punya mereka.
Tapi orang-orang
kan
pada
lihat
heran
artis
kan.
ya. Kalau ini misalkan,
Kenapa
ya kalau
orang
kagum
luar
sih
kok bisa begitu? Kenapa kok orang daerah sini di Indonesia kok nggak bisa kayak orang lain? Kebanyakan kan orang Indonesia sama orang luar kan bedanya jauh. Kenapa orang luar tuh gimana ya pikirannya itu? Pinter-pinter lah orangnya pokoknya.
Enggak juga, tergantung dari orang-orang.
Tapi kebanyakan kok, hampir
bukan
90% kalau orang luar kebanyakan gitu dibanding sama orang sini.
Karena apa yo?
Karena
Enggak
kita,
juga, menurut saya
karena kita
enggak.
kan dulunya anak petani.
Otti earns little more than $1 a day. Only one trade union is allowed in Indonesia, the government's. By ensuring a docile workforce, the government attracts the billions of dollars of foreign investment, which is powering the economy. As Indonesia has prospered, some have become extremely rich. The wealth accumulated by big businessmen and their political partners has become an embarrassment. The government maintains that this wealth, by creating employment, trickles down to the ordinary people. President Suharto has called some of the wealthiest businessmen to his ranch to ask them to share some of their profits with the people.
Problem now, as with the progress of economic development, there is a feeling as if the development is not balanced. There are coming the capital from outside, and they come in the hands of the ethnic Chinese, and they cooperate with people who are with political power, and then you have a kind of combination between the political power with the economic power. And the conglomerate's problem is the problem of today.
Yeah, but there are still restrictions. The government has restrictions against the Chinese.
Now,
Yeah.
oh yes.
Why?
Yeah, because the government has the duty, to balance that. But on the other hand, sometimes, government officials, not the government officials, they are lured to give facilities to the Chinese, because the Chinese, they are willing to serve the officials, but at the same time, they are also exploiting. But it is historical.
So there is a kind of division of labor among the economic technocrats and the military. So the economic technocrats deal with economic development, and the military deals with political stability. And this also being justified again by an ideology of development, which is basically economic development can only take place if there is a political stability. The government seems to tolerate dissent to certain people. If you are too weak, they will destroy you. In Jogja, there were some students who start criticizing the government. And then one of the students violated a law where they sold books that were banned already. He was arrested, but the main thing is that the students has friends who criticize the government in the public forum, this discussion seminar. And with the students, they arrested 2 other people who were not involved in the selling books. And the 3 of them were accused as doing subversive things. And they were arrested and they were sentenced between 6 to 8.5 years. So it was very unjust, of course. I think they were taken an example by the government. You know, if you talk too critical to us, this is an example. So the other students were afraid of doing the same. And now they are still in jail. So now you can see that we have the state dominated by the military, and you have a civil society. And the civil society is so unorganized, so weak, divided into pieces of groups. And the state is so strong, organized, and backed by the military. So we get the problem of democracy when the civil society has no power at all to challenge, not even to challenge, just to criticize the government. It is becoming more and more impossible.
Would you say the army controlled the economy of Indonesia?
Yeah, because the president, you see, is an army man, and big economic institutions is going through the generals.
Do you think the question of the ownership of wealth in Indonesia is becoming more of an issue, a political issue?
I think it's becoming an issue because we fight for independence, to get social justice and welfare of the people, not to get some people rich and not the others. That is the big problem. You cannot have social justice without political development.
Kalau menjadi kehidupan seperti bintang nyanyi, gimana kehidupannya? Dibayangkan apa? Jadi pop, bintang pop.
Mungkin kalau jadi orang penyanyi, ya mungkin banyak duit kali. Banyak duit, terus kita pengen beli apa bisa kali gitu. Mungkin kemungkinan, itu kan hanya suatu kemungkinan. Tapi nggak tahu, belum tentu mereka juga yang udah jadi penyanyi batinnya batinnya senang, lebih baik seperti orang kita lah. Nggak ada, tapi nggak ada pusing, nggak ada pikiran apa-apa, nggak ada beban. Kalau jadi orang top kan dikejar-kejar masyarakat, hidupnya nggak enak kok. Jadi orang top itu nggak enak. Mendingan jadi orang biasa-biasa saja lah. Iya, begitu.
Tapi mau beli apa saja bisa.
Iya, memang kalau untuk beli, emangnya kita mau ngejar ke duniawian, maksudnya ke duniaan kan nggak mungkin kan. Kalau kita, emangnya mau dibawa mati. Memang sih maunya sih kita ya serba cukup, serba apa gitu. Ya memang kalau Tuhan memberinya udah begini ya kita ya bersyukur aja. Yang penting keluarga sehat, bisa makan. Ya nggak kelaparan seperti ada kan yang lebih-lebih dari saya juga. Saya orang nggak mampu tapi masih ada lebih yang dari nggak mampu lebih dari saya. Ya itu. Yang penting saya mah jadi orang biasa-biasa saja lah.